Hey guys, HalfClickUp here. Welcome back to my FZ6R mods and maintenance tutorial series. In today's tutorial, we will be rebuilding our front forks. Alright, real quick, let's go over our setup. Obviously, the proper way to do this is to get a headstand, which would put a stem right in there. You pull this plug, and it lets you put a stem in there, and it holds up with a headstand. I didn't purchase a headstand. A buddy of mine has an engine hoist, so I borrowed his engine hoist. Basically, I have a strap set up going to this frame cross member, right? It's a welded piece. It's supporting the weight just fine. Now, as far as the orientation of the stand being from the side, I tried to go from the back, then I tried to go from the front. It was trial and error. Come to find out, going from the back, getting the stand as close as you can to the tail, even with the arm extended to its farthest setting, it still wouldn't quite center the hook assembly directly over the frame, so that was out. The front would have worked perfectly, except for the fact that once that A-frame is in position, it would not allow for the forks to drop out, so that wouldn't work. Wanted to kind of save myself the space right here, but I couldn't do that. Couldn't go from this side because of the drop off. The orientation just wouldn't have worked out. So there you go. Yes, it is sketchy as all get out. That arm would not clear the exhaust, so I had to make do. Got a trusty block of wood as a kind of like a countersink. It is what it is, guys. Sketchy but functional. Okay, real quick, looking at replacement parts. Essentially everything you see here in the factory service manual that says new, we are replacing, except the outer tube bushings, which is item number 12. Those are on back order, man. There was one on eBay in Japan for an exponential price. Wasn't really trying to do all that. We're in a time crunch, actually. This has to get done. So we are not replacing the outer bushings. However, we were able to get the inner bushings and everything else involved with the indications of new being required. On to special tools. You're going to need a 41mm seal driver. This is that nice Motion Pro piece. I did not purchase this. I borrowed it from the same buddy that lent me the engine hoist. You're going to need a damper rod holding tool. This one is made by Bike Master. It is a 1/2-inch drive. The range is 15 to 25 millimeters. That's important because that's specifically for Yamaha. If you pay attention right here, it says 10mm to 18mm unit is for Kawasaki. Everything else is this 1/2-inch drive unit right here. It calls for a Yamaha tool that is very expensive. The only place I could find it, just like some other things, was Japan. It was going to be a few $100 to get the Yamaha piece along with the Yamaha rod holder. I think this was like 20 bucks at Revzilla, Bike Master piece. And as far as that T-handle goes, you notice it says it's supposed to be 60 centimeters long. Here you see it being used in the illustration. I decided to mimic that. That is 24 inches. So I went to Home Depot, got a 20-inch extension as well as a 6-inch extension, put them together. Now we have 2 inches to spare. We're going to use a socket wrench as to simulate the T, right? And we are going to use a reducer to go from 3/8 to 1/2-inch to accommodate the damper rod holding tool. Just like that, man. So that's how you do this on the cheap, I guess. And last but not least, you're going to need some fork oil. I opted for Motool Expert 10 weight. Factory manual calls for 1 weight. However, I am going to track this bike, and so I wanted something that would provide a little bit more response, a little bit better feel on the racetrack. So 10 weight it is. Well, let's begin, shall we? First things first, we got to loosen the cap bolts. You want to do that now because the forks are still tight inside the brackets. Once the forks are taken out, we won't be able to get those caps loose. And by the way, that's a 22mm. I'm actually using a cheater bar because I expect these to be pretty tight. Not too bad, actually. Just a few turns to get them loosened up. Alright, so the next step is to get the fork out. You loosen the upper bolt as well as the lower bolt, and the fork's just going to slide out. Now you see I have it supported at the moment. I'm going to completely loosen the top bolt, and then I'm going to pull the stand away and then slowly loosen the bottom bolt until the fork wants to come out. Now, you see how filthy this is, right? This is the leaky fork. That fork is not leaking, but you're supposed to do these things in pairs, right? So again, anything we're doing is worth doing right. That's why we're rebuilding both of them. So with this one being the obvious problem child here, you can see the fluid residue, right? I mean, this thing is busted. I was able to reseal this thing a couple of times with the little seal mate tool, but after a few months it'll start leaking again, or if you hit just the right bump, they'll start leaking again. So that's how I know this seal is absolutely done. Anyways, with all that being said, since this is the one that is damaged, this is the one that will be of interest to you guys to see what it looks like on the inside once we tear it apart. So I will only be, for purposes of the tutorial, I will only be demonstrating this fork, and then I'm going to do that one off camera after the fact. Here we go. Let's get this sucker out of there. Now the bottom one is a 5/16. A little bit bigger. And I'm going to support the fork with my other hand. There we go. Again, supporting the fork with my other hand because she's going to slide. We'll go back to the 6mm and get back up top. Loosen that one some more. Now I'm just gently tapping the top of the fork with a rubber mallet to get it start moving. Gonna get our stand out of the way. Voila! Man, look at that, how filthy. Years of a leaky fork seal, huh? God. A little bit of an inspection here. I think once we get this thing all disassembled, get to our cleanup stage, which will be off camera, a little bit of brake parts cleaner is going to go a long way for this guy. Man, just wow. Okay. Now, just going step by step here so you guys can follow along. We are at the disassembly stage. Remove the cap bolt, spacer, spring seat, fork spring, and then you drain the oil. So basically we're going to remove the cap, O-ring seal gets replaced, spacer comes out, spring seat comes out, spring comes out, and then we dump the oil. Cap, spacer, spring seat, spring. Now if I had to guess, this oil is going to be pretty dang dirty for a multitude of reasons, right? Look at that. Look at how filthy, guys. It looks like used motor oil. Look at that. Now I would imagine that the mow tool oil, let me try and help this drain a little bit. I would imagine that the mow tool oil is going to be either pink or like a nice honey color. This stuff, mean, this is a 2009 model bike, so you figure 12, 13 years. Yeah. There you go. Now, there's a tip in the service manual that says to stroke this guy in and out. You can probably hear that. And it helps get all the oil out of there. Man, that stuff is nasty. We'll just let that do its thing for a little while, and we'll be back and disassemble. Okay, now that our draining is complete, our next step is to remove the dust seal and then the oil seal clip with a special notice in the manual not to scratch the inner tube, so we'll just have to be real careful. Got a little flathead screwdriver here. Dust seal. You can see this little guy. Boop! There you go. That's our oil seal clip. Careful not to scratch the inner tube. We'll have to clean that up a little bit too. Alright, the next step is to utilize our improvised damper rod holding tool to loosen the damper rod assembly bolt, which is on the bottom. Now the bolt is a 5/16, and I'm going to attach this to my little Milwaukee 12-volt impact driver to make quick work of this guy. My little 12-volt impact is not budging this bolt, so I have the big guns. The old trusty Chicago Electric impact. I don't know if this is actually going to work. There's only one way to find out. Got it. So that loosened it. It's free spinning inside there now. There we go. That took care of it. Now, looking at this bolt, sorry, the camera kind of moved there. One of our replacement parts is this copper washer. So that is going to be replaced. Now, the way you do this, according to the manual, is it tells you to put it in a vise clamp, which of course I don't have. So the other alternative here is to actually manually, I'm making a mess here with this old oil, manually and forcefully separate these two guys. Let's give it the old heave-ho, what do you say? There it goes. What a mess. Alright, so you can see the condition of the seal. Absolutely compromised, obviously, right? There's the damper rod. It's going to come out this end here. Like so. So there's your damper rod. Alright, so here you have the actual oil seal, the washer, the outer tube bushing, which we will be replacing, and this is the inner tube bushing, which is also supposed to be replaced. But remember, this is the guy that's on back order, so we will not be replacing this one. Also, interestingly, it's kind of fixed in here. It spins, but it's inside some lips or something here, and it looks like it would you would have to pry it right there in order to free it from its little slot here. So anyways, we won't have to worry about that. We'll just be replacing the oil seal and the outer tube bushing. By the way, all of this stuff has to be cleaned up with some brake parts cleaner, so that's what I'm gonna go do now off camera, and we'll be back for reassembly. But before we do that, this is the failed seal. This is what we're curious about. And I don't know that we're really going to be able to tell what actually failed, what caused fluid to be able to get around it. Just a general inspection of the thing, and I guess it looks alright. I don't know. I guess at the end of the day it doesn't matter because the new one's going on. So anyways, for the bushes. Okay guys, so here we go. Everything is pristinely clean, fresh out of the brake parts cleaner, dried off nice and good to go. I was looking at the inner tube, and a lot of that is just permanently there. All of that scuffing, you can't feel it, but you can see it, and that's just due to age, you know. Age and I guess heat and over a decade of old fluid. But I also can't help but wonder if the seal failure is a result of any little nicks that is in the surface. See here, there's scratches, right? See that? No idea how all that got there. I can feel it with my fingernail. You see all those little nicks? Maybe just from debris contacting and different things. So if anything is going to cause a failure, I guess it would be things like that. And the manual says to inspect for those type things and to replace it if it's suspect. What am I going to do, right? So we're just going to put it all back together, and we did our best. It is as clean as it's going to get, and yeah, let's get her back together, get her back on the bike. Alright, beginning with our inner tube, we're going to put the baby spring back in first, followed by the damper rod assembly. Kind of guide it with your finger here. There it is. Right. Now it says to lubricate the inner tube with suspension oil. Get this towel wet with the suspension oil. Inner tube into outer tube. Alright, so now it's ready to thread in the damper rod assembly bolt at the bottom. This is the tricky part because we have to hold the damper rod still inside there with our tool. Don't forget your new copper washer. And it also calls for Loctite. Okay, I've got it cinched down. I've got to grab the torque wrench, and it's going to be 16 foot-pounds. Alright, so I've enlisted the wife's help because I don't have vice grips. So she's going to serve as the vice grips, and I'm going to try and apply 16 foot-pounds to this damper rod assembly bolt. In my left hand is the tool, in my right hand is the torque wrench. Ready? Mm-hmm. There it is. Thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
Alright, next we install the outer tube bushing. Now, this guy has to be sent home with the fork seal driver. However, off camera I discovered that the fork seal driver is too wide in diameter to catch that bushing. So what I'm going to do is utilize the washer that will go on next anyways as a surface for the fork seal driver to tap onto. Get our Motion Pro tool locked in place, and I'm going to get on the ground to do this because the table's just not sturdy enough. Alright, and as you can see there, that outer tube bushing is now flush where the inner tube and outer tube meet. Just got to use the washer. Okay, the next step is to seat the oil seal. A couple of special notes here. The numbers will face up. Don't know if that'll focus on there, but there. See those numbers right there? Those numbers will face up. It also tells you to lubricate the inner lips with lithium grease. There's some lithium grease, just cheapo stuff from O'Reilly's, man. Multi-purpose, it works for axles too. And you also want to protect those inner lips with a plastic bag. And it's actually illustrated in the service manual. See there? And so all I did was I cut a piece of Walmart bag so it's nice and thin yet protective, right? So this will go over the top like so, and then the seal will slide over the top like so, but we've got to put that grease on there. And so now, numbers facing up. All the way down. And now we'll drive it home. All right, now when you drive this this seal home, you want to drive it until you see that outer tube groove. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a groove that this C-clip's gonna seat into, right? So my point is though, is that you go absolutely nuts with this thing. You're hitting it harder than you feel like you need to be hitting it, but trust me, you've got to keep hitting it harder and harder and harder until that seal drives all the way down and that groove is exposed. Otherwise it's not seated. So now we can take our clip and find the groove. Take our little flathead and poke her down in there until it's inside that groove. Now that the C-clip is installed in the groove, final step before oil is to fit the dust cover. And you drive it home with the fork driver, or the seal driver as well. There you go, finished product. I hate that all that scarring is there, but it is what it is. 12, 13-year-old bike, man. Alright, time to fill with oil. Each fork takes 16 ounces of oil. Motul sells these in 32-ounce containers. So, easy peasy, just put half of it in there. You can see the new Motul is honey colored, not like burnt motor oil, like what came out of it. There we go. Now we're going to cycle this thing. You can kind of hear it bubble a little bit in there as it sucks it down. Alright, we have this new O-ring for our cap. It says to apply grease to it. There we go. Now the spring goes in. Smaller pitch facing up. Spring seat. Spacer. And last but not least, your cap. There we go, kids. One fully rebuilt fork. Well guys, that completes the tutorial for fork seal replacement. Complete fork rebuild. Actually have the thing back installed already. Good to go. Just got to do the other side. But you guys basically get the gist. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. As always guys, if you enjoy this kind of tutorial content, smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, this has been me, that's been you. It's Half Click Up. Catch you on the next one guys. Peace and goodbye.